If surrealism is the subconscious speaking, then I think I identify with it, and I could say that I was somewhat surrealistic. I think that films should have a surface story, but underneath it, there should be things happening that are abstract. There are things that resonate in areas that words can't help you find out about, and these are subconscious areas.
Blue Velvet is a film, a story that was in David's head for a long time. He'd been thinking about it even before Dune. I think he kind of got this idea for this story about a small town and what goes on that's not normally seen, what goes on beneath the surface.
The David Lynch that we know today was sort of completely born with Blue Velvet. Those who knew all his work and going back to Eraserhead weren't completely surprised by it, but I think it is the key movie in the Lynch canon. And it's certainly the one that got, at the time, the best reviews and really knocked the critics' socks off. Not that it was in any way unanimous. There were people who really hated and despised this film. It was extremely controversial.
There were some good critics, but most of them said this was a nasty piece of work, basically.
My impression of the script, as I read the script, and I said, this is interesting, but I don't understand what it's all about. What's this movie all about? And David told me what the movie was about, and I still didn't know what the movie was about until I read the script again and read it again and again and broke it down and did the budget and saw the dailies and saw the finished product, and I think I have an idea what the movie's about, but everyone has their own idea what that movie's about.
Blue Velvet is really has become in time, I think it's a surrealist, it's the first really American surrealist film.
It's a truly disturbing vision of sort of small town American life. And some people were shocked by it, and some people thought it was just gratuitously perverse. And other people felt that you were seeing the work of a real sort of a native-born American surrealist, who was working at a level in a style that nobody else was doing. It was such a personal style, and it was seemed to flow directly from his unconscious onto the screen without the usual kind of filtering.
The original idea was, it was like a mood from the song, a mystery having to do with a small American city taking place in an older neighborhood within the city. And it was a mystery that didn't involve big government agencies or the president or, the KGB or anything like that. Just was very contained, small city.
I think Blue Velvet is the sort of film that's about what people think about, not what they talk about or do. I think that, David found that spot in people's sort of subconscious where, there's a little bit of voyeur there, and David was very curious about what could be seen that shouldn't be seen. And I think that sort of tapped into something. I think that everybody has a little bit of that, and I think that's why people, got into the film.
To do this operation at the $6 million, I remember it was $7, $8 million, something like that, we had to do the pitch in North Carolina, in the studio, where I built in North Carolina the studio. He agreed to do this operation, and we did the picture.
Dino De Laurentiis had a studio in Wilmington, and he had fallen in love with the town. It's a beautiful little town. It's not so dissimilar to the town in Blue Velvet. It's right on track there.
The easy part of it is that we owned the city of Wilmington and that they were very friendly. They loved us being there. We shut down streets. We blocked traffic. We turned off lights. So that made it easy for us. Then it was a sleepy little town. It was a college town. It was also a tourist town, but not as much as it is today. And it was not a motion picture town. So there was, 2 theaters and a restaurant and a hamburger and grits joint. Very nice, wonderful people, very helpful, but just a sleepy little seashore town on North Carolina coast. David said we're going to call the town Lumberton. I said, oh, that's an interesting name. where did that come from? He said, oh, I made it up. A while later, one of the crew guys that lived in North Carolina, lived in Wilmington, said, hey, have you guys ever been to Lumberton? It's, a couple of hours down the road. And I said, David, there's a real Lumberton. Are you sure you made up this name? He said, well, I thought I did, maybe I didn't. So now we're calling this whole movie that takes place in Lumberton, and for legal reasons, I was able to talk to the mayor's office and the Chamber of Commerce, and we went to Lumberton for a small scene to shoot, and they gave us permission to use the name. We built the set of Dorothy's apartment, and if I recall, that's the only set that we built. Everything was done on live locations.
In that sense, we really captured what Wilmington was like. The outside of Dorothy's building is a brick building, kind of the tallest one in town, and that was the apartment building that Dorothy lived in. Then we built the inside of her place. We built the hallway, and all those details were very important to David. The color of the walls. I remember we tested on film the color of the wall just to get that color right, to get the blue velvet right for the costumes. Those were very important. To get the sense of how light or how dark things could be, those were things that were important to David. So we tried to figure how dark we could make it and still just see something.
The scene where it's Dennis Hopper and Dean Stockwell, and Dean is singing, holding up a light bulb for a microphone, and the fat ladies are sitting in the chair. Now, that was an empty apartment over a hardware store that we took over and remodeled and made it our set.
Dennis Hopper, it definitely was a good movie for Hopper's career, although it tended to typecast him a little bit as crazies and wackos.
I read the words on the page, and I learned that Dennis Hopper was going to become Frank, and I never put them together until I saw him actually do it one day, to become that character.
I read it and I was just, I was amazed at what I read. My agency didn't really want me to do it. My manager didn't want me to do it. And I said, look, David Lynch is an important director. I said, I don't know how popular this film will be, but everybody in the industry will see it, and I know I can really do a good job in this part. So I want to play this part. And I want to work with David. I didn't really improvise. All the dialogue is David's. I did add the mask, the thing of the mask, which was in the script, was written as helium, which makes you sound like Donald Duck. So what I thought for years was a great contribution was I said to David, I said, I tried, he had the stuff actually there, and I used it, and it was making my voice sound strange, and I said, when I read the script, I thought of this stuff as amyl nitrate or nitric oxide or something that would, set you off for a few minutes. And he said he'd never heard of these things. And I said, well, watch this and I'll show you what it would look like. So I did it. And he said, oh, that's wonderful, that's wonderful. And I said, then you can dub the voice in later if you want to, with this high voice. And he said, no, let's try this. And I thought, wow, what a great contribution that was for many years. And then one time I was sitting thinking, if I had just done it the way David had written it, where really all it did was change the voice and nothing else, what a different character that would have been, and even maybe even more sinister, because his mind wasn't disoriented by what he was doing. It just made him sound strange. That isn't a whole nother very cold look at it.
McLaughlin was always, in a funny way, associated with Lynch. He had another career, but I think in everybody's mind, he was the Lynch kind of alter ego and did his best work for Lynch. I don't think people talk much about his performance in Showgirls.
I think Isabella Rossellini was so brave. Here's a model that David has put on 35 pounds, makes her gain 35 pounds and then takes that and then has her naked crawling around on the floor. That takes a lot of real guts and courage from an actress to do that, and also to believe in a director enough to do that.
Isabella Rossellini in the film sings a song, Blue Velvet, and she performs it on stage in the club. Isabella will be the first one to tell you that she's not really a singer. So the person who ultimately became the composer of the music of the film, a man by the name of Angelo Badalamenti, who's done all of David's films since then, all the music. I brought him in, he was an old friend of mine, I brought him in from New York, and he worked with Isabella note by note, rote by rote, and recorded her performing Blue Velvet, and a pretty decent job. In the film, he is the piano player that's sitting behind her when she's performing. She wanted him there just as her guide and as her little security blanket. So when you see the movie, you'll see Angelo Badalamenti at the piano.
Blue Velvet was always conceived as a film with bookends. The film starts in the kind of sunny small town and ends in the sunny small town with a happy ending. It's the middle that gets dark. So when we go down, into the ground and see the insects and go, down into the morgue and see the ear, those are really David's moments, those moments of transition where you go a level lower. Those are the very, very important things to him. He just loved doing that, to go inside things, to go into the ear, to go down below. Those were his treats. And he had a particular way to do them, and we had to do them right. Dorothy's apartment was very, very important to David because so much takes place there. And so many different things take place there, because there are moments where Dorothy has a relationship with Frank, there are moments where she has a relationship with Jeffrey, and there's moments where she's really alone, truly alone in there. And when we first went through the apartment and started to light it, David would say, well, now here's the couch, and Dorothy, here's where she is on the phone, and this is what happens over here, and here's what it should feel like. And then there's a moment where she goes over here to this other little sofa, and here's the kind of thing that happens there, and the feeling's completely different. The moment when she comes out to find Jeffrey at the closet, is next to a floor lamp, and it has its own feeling. The sense of Dorothy's bedroom, which is down the hall, and we lined up the door of Jeffrey's closet so you couldn't quite see her bedroom. You could see a little piece of the bathroom, but not very much, so it was a little intriguing. He didn't know quite what she was doing when she walked away. All lined up very carefully from the beginning. The sense of the light on Jeffrey when he's peering out through the blinds was very important, and we tried all different kinds of blinds to see what looked good on him. How we got the light through to his face, just how dark it should be. As the cinematographer, I'm there to support the story and what the director wants to do with it. I'd love to think that there was something I did that helped make the film more unsettling. I'm not sure if that's the case. I'm just another sort of member of the team that's helping to make the director's vision. I really believe that it's a joint effort. It really is about a group of people getting together and trying to do, what needs to be done to make the story. And I'm just, kind of a little part of it along the way.
I think Lynch is one of those he's one of those great originals. He's kind of one of a kind.
My impressions of David is that he was an unusual character. Very pleasant, very warm, very wonderful, but a little bit off-center, as we can tell by his films.
David Lynch is a great talent, but he likes to do special movie.
David always comes to something with a point of view, with something in his head. He doesn't always know how to get there, and on that level, he collaborates with Angelo or with myself or with a designer. Here's the mood, here's what it should feel like. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, just make it feel like this. And the advantage for me is that David can look through the camera and can see whether you've got it or not. You don't have to shoot it and see that it's wrong on film. He knows film well enough to know that through this lens, at this distance, it really will feel like this.
David was wonderful to work with. He was very, sort of like a Boy Scout, very naive, and in those days he wouldn't say. He said, "Now when you say that word," I said, "Well, that word's f***," you know, which he had also written the script. You know, he said, "Yeah, when you see that word," and he would say, "Golly gee, that's solid gold. Let's do one more." Sort of like Howdy Doody was directing, or a Boy Scout leader, very straight one. So, but he knew exactly what he wanted, and that's really, I mean, to be working for an auteur filmmaker is always a thrill.
He inspires me to do what needs to be done. And in the case of David, it's so specific and it's so beautiful. You know, again, it calls on his painter's background to say the mood has to be just this, you know, and it's just this dark. When we did Eraserhead, you know, we looked for how dark we could make things and still see a little glimmer up on the screen. And that became very, very important to us, just the way it looked on the screen. That is the magic of film, is what you can get up on the screen. And David is so good at envisioning that and communicating that to me as a cinematographer.
His vision is uniquely his own. You know, you don't look at this and think, oh, we took that from there and he took that from there. I mean, you can see influences, deep influences, you know, but his style is very much his own. And it's such an intriguing mixture of sort of seeming naivete and depravity. In a funny way, he's not really an actor's director, although there have been wonderful performances in his movies, and certainly Richard Farnsworth in The Straight Story, and Naomi Watts is magnificent in Mulholland Drive. But you come out of a Lynch movie talking about Lynch's vision and talking about how weird David Lynch is, not about how great the acting is, usually.
With director like Fellini, like David Lynch, each page of the script, when they put in the screening with the fantasy, imagination, or something different, they create shot by shot the movie. Professional director, they just make the movie shot by shot. That's all.
Dino gave David Lynch final cut, which is very unusual to give to David Lynch at that time. He wasn't, you know, Steven Spielberg or whatever. And he said to David, "And I cannot give it to you on a contract. You'll shake my hand because then every other director will want it. But my word is my word." And Dino's word was always his word. Whatever people may say or think of Dino and his business tactics and so on, his success and whatever, when Dino gives you his word, it's the law. And so David had final cut. So the things that we did while we were filming, as weird and unusual as they may be, they were still in the movie, and it was still David's vision.
As the cinematographer, you have kind of the myopic view of the story, and you see all the little moments as you photograph the film. You see the detail. You don't get to sit back and look at the whole thing until the end when it's all cut together. So we did the photography. We, you know, made it look the way we felt it should. And then I went away for a few months and they edited and did the sound, and I came back and saw the film cut together at the mix. And it was shocking. It was shocking how powerful it was. I had no idea that it added up to that. I mean, it was the same words and the same story that we read in the beginning, but it took on such a life of its own. I couldn't believe it.
When the film was finished and David did his final cut, there was a screening of the movie in LA, in Beverly Hills. Dino De Laurentiis had an office complex on Cannon Drive. And there may have been 10 or 12 of us there. I mean, Dino, of course, and his marketing people and distribution people and various other people, and screened the movie. And as you and I, you see the movie for the first time, you're kind of a bit confused about what's really going on here. So the lights came on, and these are all the suits, all the executives, and you know, they know marketing and distribution. Doesn't matter whether they like or not like the film, or they're going to be able to sell it. The lights came on, everybody was quiet and silent, and Dino said, well, David, I don't know what we're going to do with this movie and who's going to ever want to see it, so I will have to distribute it myself. I promised you we will distribute this movie, and I will. And certainly Dino kept to his word, and then the film was distributed, and it became the cult film of one of the cult films of all time.
When I first saw the film, I took a lawyer to see it with me, and there was a little screening in New York, and he laughed from beginning to end. I mean, he never stopped laughing. He thought everything was the funniest thing he'd ever seen, and everyone else in the theater was sort of looking at him and me, and they didn't know how to react. I wasn't sure how to react either, but he enjoyed it. He went out and said, this is the most wonderful film. What a funny film this is.
When the film was first released, and before some of the great reviews that came out, no one really knew what the movie was about. And it started off in just a few theaters, and then it started to build, and the reviews came out, and it started to build, continued to build, and then it became quite successful. I mean, in its own right, it became very successful.
I love the film. I mean, I really do like what we did. I think it's very powerful still today. And I always look forward to seeing it again. I just love watching it. Just not for really what I did at all, just because of the piece together, because of the music, because of the performances. I think it really holds up very well.
People love to watch what they can't, normally watch, and they love to go where they can't normally go. But the beautiful thing about films is they can go with a certain amount of safety. And they can always, get up and leave, or they can, go on there with their, popcorn and stuff, or they can really, sink into it.
I believe we're talking about Blue Velvet 20 years later, and the legacy of the film is the fact that it captures your imagination, and it also has emotions to it. The emotion that you feel for Dorothy, the emotion that you feel for Kyle MacLachlan, and in a way, the emotion that you feel for that nasty guy, Frank, Dennis Hopper. The fact that it makes you think at the end of the movie is not 100% clear. And so when it's finished and you go out with your friends and your family, you talk about the movie. It's the kind of film that, as we said earlier, 20 years later, you're still talking about it. And 20 years from now, you're still going to be talking about it.
Ideas come along, and then there's, characters coming along, and they're, particularly in Blue Velvet, the characters, are popping into my mind, and they're doing certain things. It's not that I'm interested in something like, just good and evil, but there's a struggle in life, and there's tensions, and I'm interested in those kind of things.